On this week's pod, can everyone stop jinxing Kane?
Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast. I'm your host, Geoff at Geoff Willis, and each week I'll be talking fancy Premier League football. You can find the show on podcast services around the globe, just search Captain's Pick, and we also feature on the YouTube channel FPL Podcast, so please remember to subscribe, like and share. On today's show I'll be looking back at Game Week 7, looking at my squad selection for this weekend, and discussing Game Week 8's fixtures along with transfer talk and my captain's pick. So looking back at Game Week 7, I got a total Game Week score of 60 points. Obviously I did take a minus 4 point hit. The average points was 51. My Game Week rank was 1,370,000. And that left me on an overall points of 440, an overall rank of 168,000. So it was a drop of about 40,000. Just looking back over my team, the top point scorers. So Pickford finally, hooray, got a clean sheet this season. First one, so got me those 6 points. Very happy, and I think he's probably gonna stay in my team for 2 more weeks. But was just happy to get a clean sheet in this whole run of which I thought would be quite a few more clean sheets. But at least he's got one. Other big point scorer in the defence was Chilwell. Got me a clean sheet. I brought him in 2 weeks ago now, so got his first clean sheet, so that was good. Pretty much blanked everywhere else in the defence and in the midfield. Slightly disappointed with Richarlison, only got me the 3 points. Of course, I brought him in last week for that hit. I was right in predicting that I thought there would be a lot of goals in that game, and Everton did win 3-0. And I can't believe he was on the pitch for 86 minutes. They had 3 goals, scored 3 goals, and he wasn't involved in any of them. So my gut instinct was correct in terms of the scoreline and the goals that would be scored in that match, but unfortunately wasn't a part of any of them. So it was a little bit disappointing, and obviously looked in the end that it wasn't worth the points hit. So that's twice so far I've took points hits and it's not really worked out for me, so hopefully I'll maybe learn my lesson in the future, but who knows. But up front is where I scored the majority of my points this week, so really happy with that. Aguero, who I captained, got the goal just before he went off the pitch. Obviously captained him, so that was 16 points. Zaha got an assist, slightly disappointed. Was hoping for a goal in that match, and it does look like he'll be going into this game week as his last game week in my team. More on transfers later on, but looks like this will be his last appearance for me in my team. And then Harry Kane, obviously been in my team from the start, so starting to return some of the investment that I've laid out on him. He got his 2 goals, so happy about that. A return of 13 points. So as I say, 60 points minus that 4 points. So not too bad, fairly happy. Was nearly on for another 11 points if Daniel Sturridge hadn't scored that goal in the Liverpool-Chelsea match a couple of minutes from the end. I think Alonso was on for a clean sheet and maximum bonus points, so would have got me up to about 70 points there, but as it was, not too bad. Only a little small arrow, really, and onwards and upwards, I think. So looking into transfers for game week 8, only looking at one transfer, really. Looking at taking out Bernardo Silva, who's had a decent run in my team. He's been in from the start, so he's had 7 game weeks. Not too bad. Total score of those 8 weeks, 33 points. Fixtures for City do get a little bit more tricky. Obviously worried of Pep Roulette as well, and just don't think he's gonna be, for the money you have to put out on him. I just don't think he justifies a place in the squad over the season. He's bound to score more points, but I just think there's better investment elsewhere. So that's why I'm looking at James Maddison of Leicester to come in. He's at 6.9, so I've missed a few price rises on him, but kind of wanted just to assess what he'd be like in the first 8 game weeks of the season. And if he carries on his form throughout the season, I think he'll be a good pick. He's scored 3 goals, 2 assists, 3 bonus points. I say Leicester's fixtures for the next 7 game weeks look very decent. So I'll be looking to bring him in, and that obviously gives me 0.6 million in the bank to spend elsewhere next game week. Had looked at maybe bringing in a Wolves defender or goalkeeper, but they are playing Palace, who I have 2 of their players. More specifically Zaha, who this really is his last chance. Going more on, don't really, if I fancy Zaha to score a few goals, then I don't really want a Wolves defence or goalkeeper, and I don't want to take a points hit for it as well. So I think it'll just be the one change this week. Bernardo Silva out for James Maddison in. And game week captain, there's only one choice for me. Obviously, we've got City away at Liverpool, so that rules out Aguero and Salah for me. I'm sure they potentially both might score in that match, but there's scope for 2 good defences there, so scope for a 0-0 draw. But I've had Kane since the start of the season. He's got to be my captain this game week. I did fancy him as game week captain last week, as I mentioned on the pod, and would have outscored Aguero, but still didn't mind because they both returned. But has to be Captain Kane at home to Cardiff this week. Although slightly concerned that most of the FPL community, especially on Twitter, look to be bringing Kane in for hits and wild cards and all sorts of things. So just hoping that they don't put the mockers on him and jinx him and he blanks or is rested somehow. But no, I think he'll do well, and looking for 2 to 3 goals out of him would be amazing. Especially because he isn't picked by quite a lot of other teams. Though I admit that I don't have Hazard, and he's away to Southampton, so there's chance that he could do just as well as Kane. So might actually not improve my overall position if Kane and Hazard do well. But I'm just thinking Kane, just hoping really that Kane can outscore Hazard in this game week. Looking at the fixtures, as a little reminder now, I'll remind you again at the end of the pod, but this game week, the deadline is tonight, so it's 7 o'clock tonight, Friday. So get your transfers in before 7. The Brighton West Ham game is at 8 o'clock tonight. So if you're listening to this on your way home, on the tube or anything, on the trains, make sure you get your team in before 7. If you must, just quickly pause this pod and do any changes you may need to do, or maybe try and listen to the rest of the pod if you can, and then make your changes. Brighton West Ham tonight. West Ham have picked up some good form recently. Arnautovic has looked decent, so I know a lot of people have been transferring him in. I'm looking at transferring him in a few weeks' time, where the West Ham fixtures really pick up. So I'll be interested in see how well he does. had an outside look at Anthony Knockaert of Brighton. He's a 5.5 midfielder. Could get some attacking returns. They've got some great fixtures coming up, but just looking at the moment just to see how well he does. Still not sure really if I want to invest in any Brighton players. So I could see this as maybe a 2-1 West Ham, maybe a draw 1-1. But because Brighton will definitely be wanting to look to see to try and get a victory there, but at home. But so I think West Ham are picked up some good form recently. Going to Saturday's matches, Burnley at home to Huddersfield. Can't even begin to think about this really. No idea how that'll go. Probably a Burnley win, 1-0. Wouldn't be looking too forward to that game if I'm honest. Maybe Goodmanson as a pick for Burnley might do some business there. And obviously, if you've got Joe Hart in goal, probably keep a clean sheet. But yeah, not too interested in that game. As I mentioned earlier, Palace at home to Wolves. Just hoping that Zaha can pull something out of the bag there. I know a lot of people have invested in the Wolves defence. If Zaha does well, and I've obviously got him, then that's going to really boost my overall rank. Just hoping there's not a clean sheet for Wolves in that match, because that will hurt me, and especially when I talked about transfers and thinking about bringing in a Wolves player, just hoping that they don't do defensively well in that game, because I just didn't want to take a points hit. Especially after last week's points hit didn't really work out for me. Leicester at home to Everton, gonna be a tricky fixture for my team, and to predict this one, because I'll essentially have two defenders from this match. I'll have Chilwell, and I'll obviously have Pickford, and then I'm bringing in Maddison, and I've already got Richarlison. So whether there's attacking returns or defensive returns here, it's going to scupper me a little bit. I just hope that if there is goals scored, it comes from my attacking players, and potentially my defender in Chilwell, if he can maybe pick up an assist, and maybe there'll be some bonus saves from Pickford. But could be a 2-2 in that game. Just hope my attacking players return in that game. Spurs at home to Cardiff, mentioned that already. Captain Kane at home, going for a big points haul, fingers crossed. Watford at home to Bournemouth. Watford have been good at home. Bournemouth haven't been that great away from home, so I think Watford could win this one. Could be a 1-0 Watford there, I think. Look out for Troy Deeney. He's captain on penalties, and not got a bad run of fixtures, Watford. So Deeney could do well in that match. Then the late game on Saturday is Man United at home to Newcastle. I haven't got any Man United players and don't really want any. The only one I'd potentially think of is Shaw. I think he could get some attacking returns. Man United probably good to win that match, I would say. Maybe a 1-0. Lukaku could do well in that match. Newcastle haven't been great so far this season, but I think they'll go there with 10 defenders, a coach, a bus, a train, whatever metaphor you're going to use, analogy. They'll be parking everything there. Man United have really struggled to break down teams. I think they could still maybe nick that 1-0. Going on to Sunday's games. Fulham at home to Arsenal in the midday game. I think Mitrovic might do well in this game. Arsenal's defence haven't been that great. But I do see Arsenal scoring. I think they've scored in every match so far this season, by the first game of the season. They've looked good attacking. Fulham haven't looked very good defensively. So could be a few goals in that. Could be a 2-2 draw there. But I think I mentioned Mitrovic earlier. Maybe look to get him in after this game week where they've got a good run of, I think, 3 or 4 fixtures. So looking at him to replace Zaha after this game week. So I'll be definitely interested to see how well he does in that match. Then my team, Chelsea, play away at Southampton. Has over the years been a little bit of a tricky fixture for us. I think we've been in good form. Defensively, not been amazing, but Southampton haven't looked great going forward. Yeah, they got Danny Ings who could do some damage, but I'll be definitely looking at Alonso for clean sheet potential and definitely attacking potential points there. If Hazard goes big, that's all fine by me. Happy to see him do well. Potentially looking at getting him in maybe in a couple of weeks' time where we've got a good run of fixtures and some good home fixtures because Hazard mostly does well at home, but I could see him chipping in some points away at Southampton. And then the late game and probably the game of the weekend on Sunday is Liverpool at home to Man City. Any score line or result could be on the table here. I think there could be goals galore. It could be very, very tight. Didn't really want 4 players playing in this match, so that was another reason for transferring out Bernardo Silva from Maddison. So I'll have the 2 Liverpool players, Alexander-Arnold and Salah, looking for points from them, and Aguero as well. Though Aguero's never scored at Anfield, still fancy him maybe to do some bits. Yeah, very hard to predict that game, but I'll just watch that and enjoy it, and knowing that I've got defensive and attacking possibilities in that match. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy that one, hopefully after a Chelsea result a couple of hours before. So that is game week 8. Definitely looking at possibly setting up a wild card for either game week 9 over the international break or game week 10. A lot of the fixtures that I want players in start to turn around game weeks 9 and 10. So I'll definitely be looking into wildcard options then. International break can be good because you can pick up a lot of price rises on players that are getting very popular in the game. So I'll just keep an eye on that. I've got 2 weeks to play it, so I'll be looking at price rises and form, and if there's any injuries in the international break. At the moment, I would say the perfect time for me would probably be game week 10 because I can analyse the international break, see if anyone's come back injured, gives them a week to recover if there has been any slight knocks. But game week 10 provisionally looks like the game week where I'll be wildcarding, but I'll have a lot more information and podcasts on that when I do pull the trigger. Okay, so seeing there's only a little bit of time really left by the time I get this podcast out before the deadline tonight, I'll wrap up the show there. A reminder again, game week 8 deadline is tonight 7 p.m, so if you listen to this on the train, it's commute, rush hour, whatever, 5-6 o'clock, open up the app, get your changes in, select your captain, do your changes, any transfers, get them done before 7 o'clock tonight. As ever, you can find me tweeting FPL Gold on the podcast Twitter account at CaptainsPickPod. Feel free to send in any questions or topics you'd like discussed on the show. And so from me, good luck with game week 8, and until next time, it's been my pleasure to talk with you.
Captain's Pick, the FPL Podcast.